My name is Han, and I'm from South Korea. I was born and raised in Seoul for my whole life. And now I'm in a blockchain industry as a node operator called NodeONE. And I run nodes in different blockchains and mainly focused on EOS. And recently I'm launching a DAO, which focuses on bringing blockchain node operators, bringing votes for electing node operators. So it's a political campaign on blockchain.
And tell me, back up for just 1 second, and tell me how you got into blockchain in the first place.
Okay. So back in 2012-13, I was working for a startup incubator called DCamp, which is funded by top 20 banks in Korea, which fund was about half a billion. And then I ended up managing all the investment bets in the early days. And then one of the first company they ended up investing was Corbit, and it's the Korea's first crypto exchange. I had no idea, what Bitcoin was back then, but then we ended up investing in them, and then that's pretty much when I first bought my Bitcoin. And then the price was about $100-200 back in around that time, and I sold everything in the early 2017 when the price hit 2,000. So I thought to myself, oh my God, I made such a big fortune out of doing nothing. And then with that money, I took a sabbatical, and then I went to the Burning Man for the first time. And then everybody was talking about Bitcoin. And I was like, what's so special about Bitcoin? What is it really about? And it turns out that it's something that is very much different than traditional. I thought it was some sort of, there must be some companies and some corporate structures and everything, but then it was not. People in Burning Man would tell me that blockchain is about making country. So I was like, oh, it looks like it's a quite big, audacious sort of projects. I was like asking myself, who's running the project? Because I'm still at the mental framework, right? And then I come back from Burning Man, and then I met the founder of Corbit. So what was Bitcoin? So what do you think about it? Because I've been hearing so many stories about it from Burning Man, and he also confirmed that it's really about community and country, nation state. And then, okay, it looks like this is something I might be putting myself into as a career-wise. So I was asking myself, how should I get into the space? So is it ICO? Should I get a job here? So what is the good entry? So I ended up deciding to go to conferences all around the world. So I went to Hong Kong, Dubai, Tulum, Mexico, Davos Forum in Switzerland, and everywhere. And I thought, maybe I run a node. Back then, EOS was very hyping because it raised about more than $4 billion. Actually, it's the biggest ICO ever in blockchain history. And then I took a look at that, and then it was technologically very advanced. It raises so much money. And then philosophically also, I had this some weird feeling, resonance that this might be it. And I don't have to do an ICO. I don't have to raise money. I could spin up a node with the money from my own pocket, and then it's gonna turn out rather quickly if it's gonna have next or it's gonna just die. So I took a leap of faith, asking permission from my partner, and then she was like, "Go for it." It's okay, I'm just doing it. And then I just announced my candidacy as a block producer, just node, because in EOS you have to be voted from the token holders. So I ended up surviving, and I'm here. And then I gone through all the 4 years history, lots of ups and downs, and all the good things and bad things. And I learned that this is something that I can do here, and then I must to do here. So I'm preparing launching this thing called My Vote EOS DAO.
And so explain what that is.
My Vote EOS DAO is, I would say it is a blockchain voting movement which urges people, the token holders, not to sell their votes. Because in EOS history, those nodes, actually EOS has 21 nodes, they are voted up to represent those people who voted them, right? They have all the political and economical decision-making power for the community. So for example, like how much should be the inflation of the coin? And then how this money from that inflation has to be spent on what kind of projects on top of it, right? But then the problem was in the course of the 4 years, those people were very speculative, right? They didn't have this awareness that how their votes really mattered, right? So how it ended up was those centralized exchanges in certain countries, and then they basically sold their votes to those BPs on price, who's bidding for better price for the exchange, and then BP were competing for the lower price.
What does BP stand for?
BP is a block producer.
That's the node, same as a
Yeah,
node.
it's same as a node.
Yeah.
So they basically produce blocks, meaning blockchain is, in the end, is just a voting tool, consensus making tool, right? And then those consensus algorithms like POS, POW, or DPoS, this is only a way to elect. These are the way how to elect those people who's going to be notarize the consensus on behalf of those community, right? So it is a public thing for the collective. So they have all the decision-making powers, and to say what is a fact and what is not. But then largely this kind of thing, in my belief, this kind of decision-making power shouldn't be commoditized, right? So when EOS just came into the game in 2018, it has a vision of being a governed blockchain. And instead of code is law.
Yeah, not protocol, but
Yeah. But then EOS was envisioning itself becoming on top of this model of the intent of the code of the law. So because any code will eventually have a bug, and then it has to be fixed by someone. So if the code doesn't work as intended, the people gotta come in and fix that. So that's why intention of human being is mattered, right? So it's really ending up with the human intention, right? The collective intention, democratic, right? But then with that certain country, certain exchanges begin selling the vote. So it pretty much became the bad money driving good money. So if one person do that, if I'm to be survive, if I'm to survive, and if I don't want to be outcompeted, I gotta do the same thing.
it's corruption.
Corruption. So if one person does it, everybody has to do it just to be surviving, right? So it became a culture norm. It became a very rampant culture. So because someone began it, and everybody has to follow it just to survive as a BP, as a node operator. So, those people in the top 21, because they bought their votes from the exchanges, and then those exchanges, they give what they made from those BPs by casting votes for them. They just give it to their customers as a staking reward. And then those end users, they don't know who this exchange voted on behalf of them, right?
And there's economic rewards for being a BP as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So in EOS, so it began with 1 billion tokens, and then there's 1% inflation annually that is specifically allocated for those BPs. So those multiple BPs sharing those 1% inflation, and then they receive it in accordance with how much vote they get. in pro rata basis.
Okay.
Yeah. But then out of this vote buying thing became norm, they have to pay like more than 80% or even 120% of what they make they have to pay that to the exchanges. So, although they are sitting on all the decision-making power, economical, political, technical decision-making power, they are sitting on top of it, they're holding all the important keys, but then they have no money to actually take care of anything important. So for them to survive, they have to do something else. They gotta do some other jobs. So they don't care about it, right? So they remain largely faceless to the actual community. So there's lots of, like vicious spiral. So basically from token holders perspective, I keep my money on say like some exchanges. And this exchange voted on behalf of me, those BPs for certain APR, right? Oh, okay, I have a 3% APR. It's good for me. But then what happened is that, the price of any tokens or the value of any tokens is actually the real value is created when somebody work on something. If I create tools, DeFi or community or any DAO, or maybe I could, throw an event or do some educational, like whatever, right? But then all the money that is supposed to spend in these kind of things was just given to exchanges and given to those token holders as a 2%, 3% APR. So although I was earning like a 2%, 3%, the actual value was dwindling. So this is the vicious spiral. So I was very feeling disappointed, desperate. I was thinking a lot about should I throw a tower and get a job? But then it was epiphany where I took a look at the size of the cold wallet of exchanges. And then I just learned that, oh my God, there's more than 20% of the tokens are sitting in Korean exchange. So I was like, if these guys can help or allow their customers to cast the vote in a not corrupted way, it could totally shift the dynamics. Because if it's a big enough of amount that can outdrive what is happening. So I saw that hope. So I've been keeping the conversation so far. And then I'm making it public as a movement, as a hashtag, MyVoteEOS hashtag. And then I'm driving all the people to tell their exchanges to participate in this, to tell them to open the door so that they can say their voice and cast the vote while still staying in their exchanges in a not both buying, selling way.
And so are you still a node operator?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And so the idea is for those token holders that currently have their tokens in the Korean exchanges to vote for other like-minded BPs, right?
Yeah. So basically, this campaign has an entity. There is a people who will hold accountable of those BPs. So so it's going to be a proxy. So there's an entity, and then when people, the token holders, ask their exchanges, let us vote. What they'll do is they're gonna delegate the customer's voting power to this proxy. What that means is that these guys, the normal token holders who has a 9-to-5 day jobs, they don't have all the time to spend to research who's good BP, who's not a good BP, right? So we know all the knowledges. So what we do here within this voting proxy is that we ask those BPs sign a pledge. If you sign a pledge where you say I will not engage in the vote buying, then you are eligible to be voted. So there's a filter. And then, yeah.
So the group, there's a DAO behind that proxy.
So so I'm doing it. So if I'm controlling all the votes, I'm the dictator. I might be the dictator because if all the Korean votes come here, it's going to be so big and it's going to be so much powerful. But then if I'm the only person who's controlling it, it's a problem, right? So although I'm beginning it, it's going to have an internal process, internal governance. I'm going to be come down once that is the initial goal is achieved.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll be the instigator, but then
Yeah.
more DAO-like governance.
Yeah. So there's a DAO structure as well.
Yeah.
So there's going to be 64 people who's going to be, it's like a representative of all the community all around the world. So there's some number of people from the Europe, some number of people from the US, and then some Latin America and Korea and China. And they're gonna discuss all the political aspects and economical aspects and then reflect that on the vote. Yeah.
So then you're hoping that after that,
Yeah.
if that is successful, to take that model and then apply it to real world politics in Korea, right?
Yeah. Okay, this is the next step. That is just an idea. For example, it's just my very early stage thinking. There's going to be 2% inflation, for example, that is supposed to be spent on different DAOs and projects. If we set aside 0.5 or 0.25% of that inflation for local Korean projects, and one of that multiple Korean projects could be a DAO that is engaging in real world politics in Korea and make itself become a political party. I think it is very powerful because so Korea is a bipartisan country, and then many of the parties in Korea, small parties, they are struggling because they lack the local networks. They have not enough network that covers the whole country, so they don't have enough support base. It is largely because they don't have fundings. Then if there's ample funding and if it garners lots of if it is liked by the 20 people in the 20s and 30s, I think it can be something. And I think it's because Korea population is 51 million, and then those people who has an account in Korea's biggest exchange called the Upbit is more than 8.5 million. Yeah. And then if there's a party who can represent them, it's going to be very powerful. And actually, in the broader history, broader context of what's happening in the world right now is a polarization, right? So all the big companies like Facebook, Apple, these kind of companies, Amazon, these kind of companies are dominating everything as a platform, and then those players on the platform is marginalized, right? So that's where this conversation of the Web 3.0 kicks in. So internet is supposed to be owned by the community, but then who actually owns the community? So it's actually those early, investors. In the end, ultimate beneficiaries of mostly small group of early investors and pre-miners and pre-sale stakeholders. So pretty much in most of the platforms, either on blockchain or traditional like corporate structure, is a private company is becoming just too powerful. That's a problem, right? The same thing happening in Korea also. So big companies like Naver, which is Google equivalent, these companies are criticized a lot. And then it became a very important political topic agenda. How we democratize this system, because with the tech, the difference between tech, the IT and traditional manufacturing industry is that this is scalability, right? Because computer can just copy paste and then they give lots of profit, because with the computers you can just copy paste, right? So this whole thing, this model of DAO could be garner a lot of resonance within these people in younger generations. These guys, like Gen Z and these people, we don't want to be, hired for all my life. We want to be autonomous. We want to be sovereign. And this kind of shift in the thinking mindset is all very Taoish. And we want to make this spirit in our real world politics also. So this is just an ideation phase, but then depending on how we end up, where we end up from here, maybe we can do something with this end. Yeah. Actually, what blockchain is, in my thinking, is a database or ledger that publicly notarizing our agreement, right? It gives it publicity. Who keeps this publicity is important. Somebody who has lots of power. So there's lots of people in the blockchain community, right? And if there's only few pre-miners, pre-sale holders is managing this consensus that notarize people's agreement, it's a problem. So what I think blockchain, double-bladed sword, right? It could either accelerate polarization, or it could serve the people, free people. And I think it is important. So I think it has to be democratic. And I think what I'm doing with my vote thing, my vote use thing, is in line with blockchain, democratization of blockchain. So to make it short, it has to serve people, not money. Yeah. And the blockchain is a divine tool that notarizes the agreements between human being to human being. Yeah.
So if blockchain is that tool that you're talking about, that is kind of a public record of the way that we respect each other and agree or disagree with each other, what does that make a DAO?
What is a DAO? DAO, there's also a different aspect in DAO. DAO eventually, I think, is if you think about the structure of traditional corporate structure, which is invented in 17th, 18th century, right? So there's a shareholders, there's employee, and there's customers. There's three key stakeholders, different players, right? And the stakeholders, they hire employee to do the job, and then they want them to work as much as possible while they pay as less as possible. And then those workers, employees, they want to make as much money as possible while work as less as possible. And these customers, they want to pay as less as possible while receive as much value as possible. There's a fundamental conflict of interest, right? So if we take an example of where, say, I'm an Apple, and then I pay my employee with Apple share instead of paying USD. And then when you want to buy an Apple iPhone, you pay Apple share instead of US dollars or something else. And then from the moment when you pay your employee with your organization's share, the relationship is transformed. Because you are the shareholder, you are the shareholder, I'm shareholder, and the customer is also shareholder. We are on the same ship, same boat. So interested in aligned. So I think DAO is really about aligning the interest. Yeah. So that I'm not a slave who sell my time for, fixed rate on my time. I have this ownership. In a traditional corporate structure, all the upside is taken by only the handful of shareholders, right? So I think it is bringing everybody on the same boat, and then this is the potential of DAO. I think it's really about aligning interest. It's dissolving the traditional relationship of the master and slave. So it's really about sovereignty.
And it's interesting because the way you're describing blockchain, it's about sovereignty and the self.
Yeah.
But then when you talk about that traditional corporate model, that's about aligning around self-interest. Everyone is looking in that triangle. Everyone is looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
But in the DAO model, it is about aligning everyone around common interest. So it's interesting that the blockchain, which is about sovereignty, is the tool that enables community interest, right?
Yeah, this is actually very interesting because okay, I make money in DAO. I make money. I work for myself, but then it turns into I work for my company. I work for my interest and collective's interest is aligned. Yeah, in the traditional corporate structure, is not quite there yet because I don't take all the upside as an employee. But then if I'm the shareholder of that organization as a DAO, if my contribution end up contributing the price increase of that DAO, I'm taking that upside, right? So that's the difference.
And I'm not sure how it works in South Korea, but in the United States, by law, a corporation's first responsibility is to its shareholders.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a responsibility to the customers or to its employees. The responsibilities it has to its employees have to be enforced by separate laws. But the fiduciary responsibility to make as much profit as possible and be responsible to the shareholders is number one. And it's different.
Yeah. So actually, if you take a look at how this corporate model, the stock market is working, who's actually working to create value as an employee? There's those group of people, right? And then those shareholders, until it goes public in a stock market, there's only handful of dozens of shareholders, right? And then as it goes public, there's a whole bunch of other people coming to buy the stock, and then these are protected by the law, right? And then these guys are protected by other set of the law, the labor law or whatever. So there's discrepancies. But then DAO is something that glues this together. So I'm employee, but then at the same time I'm shareholder. So actually this separation of this shareholder and an employee, that creates all sorts of different problems. So I think it's more holistic, it's a separate. The separation of employee and the shareholders, it causes lots of problem. And I think it is more, DAO is making human collective more whole. Yeah.
So if we imagine your DAO political party, what would be, because that's not a company, political party is different. So what would be, in a DAO political party, what would be the separation? Is there a different separation that's being brought together?
It's too early to tell what it's going to look like. But then in the end, the blockchain is aligning the interest. What it does is, in the end, is aligning the interest in my perspective. So I think if I end up more elaborate the initial idea, and then if I make that happen after this my vote use thing kicks off, then I'll have this keep this in mind, how we make it whole. That's the direction that I think I have to follow.
Is there anything else that you think we left out? Anything you want to add? Be sure to say.
I think as we are as a humanity, we are on the verge of either like we go to the next level, or we're gonna suffer a lot, right? And then blockchain is such a crucial tool to make human being to take a leap into the next level. We already witnessed the fall of communism, and then I think we are on the brink of seeing how crony capitalism is collapsing, I think. So the blockchain, I believe blockchain is the tool that will bring us into that's something else. So communism failed because it was a controlling from the top down, controlled economy, planned economy, right? It basically killed the autonomy, sovereignty of the people of its community. So it failed, right? And on the other hand, we thought the capitalism won the battle, won the war against communism, but then is seeing that the private interest is overwhelming the public interest. It's a private platform is overwhelming the public, right? So the DAO, or this notion of blockchain, this triangle merging everybody's on the same boat, aligning the interest. This is some new model that combines a little bit of aspect from the communism and a little bit of aspect from capitalism. Combine it is what I think is DAO is.